Hello, welcome back to my channel. I never know how to start these things. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Liv. I'm an independent author. My current work in progress is a sorority romance novel with an estimated release date of fall 2026 and with an autistic main character. And my current only published novel, Saving Summer, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online only. Yeah, I think that covers it. We're actually gonna be talking about Saving Summer today, and I know in my last video I said I was gonna wear a Be Kind shirt, but I saw this at the mall today and I'm like, I had to buy it, and then I'm like, why don't I just wear this? Although it is kind of warm. I don't know if black was the move, but we're fine. So yeah, as you can tell by the title, I am going to be doing a deep dive into the autistic representation in Saving Summer and just like the key moments for which the key moments of the autistic experience that I wanted to communicate through either Summer's character or other characters in the novel. This will contain spoilers, so if you haven't read the book yet and you would like to and you don't want any spoilers, highly recommend you do that first and then come back and watch this, because I'm not gonna make the effort to like be like, by the way, if you want to skip the spoiler, just click to this minute. Like, I don't got time for that. I know this video is long. You guys can see how long it is. I don't know how long it is because I just started filming it. Right now it's only 2 minutes. So, and I've already probably cut stuff out because I say lots of things. So, okay. I went through my Amazon proof copy because I didn't want to get my Ingram Spark proof copy. Like, I didn't want to ruin that if any of these post-its got a little too stuck in. But I put post-it flags on everything that I wanted to talk about, and I went through 2.5 colors of post-it flags. I also brought a little beverage with me, not sponsored. Strawberry kiwi vitamin water. It's my current, it's what I'm using to try to get myself to drink less Dr. Pepper. For some reason, this is working. This and electrolytes, but well, that's not what you came to hear about. All right, I might check my phone every now and again because my best friends and I took some pictures at JCPenney, and they said within like 2 to 5 hours they'd, we just got them. Pause the video. I have to send my friends these pictures. Pause the video. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm back. So anyway, like I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and talk about specific either lines or scenes or just choices that I made with the characters to reflect to reflect the autistic experience or my autistic experience. And as you can see, there's quite a lot. So we're gonna be here for a while. So I'm excited though. That's why I got my drink ready. I just ate. I am locked and loaded, baby. It was fun going through this because I have not read this since I did my final proofread of it before I uploaded my final files. Because I have this thing where I'm like, every time I reread something I wrote, it does not matter what draft I'm on, I find something I want to make better. So like, this is published. So I'm just like, there is no reason for me to read this again. Nothing good can come from me reading this again. But I went through it and I didn't find anything that was like, ooh, I better change this. So we are going to jump right in. And my first flag has us on page 18. So this is during Summer's first narration scene, and she's talking about how like she feels, well, I'll read it. All right. Bottom of page 18. I'd had a suspicion for a long time that there was something wrong with me. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was something. My whole life, I'd felt like everyone around me naturally fit into some secret world that I couldn't be part of. It was like I had something blocking me from having a normal social life, from having friends who wanted to do stuff after school, like go to the mall and hang out, or a group of friends to take candid photos with, or even multiple friends who got along with each other. Wait, I'm getting a little emotional now because I literally just went to JCPenney and took pictures with my friends. I'm almost 30, but anyway, it blocked me from having guy friends, or even just guys who treated me like they treated the pretty girls, from having people be nice to me more than just a quick wave in the hall, from knowing what to say when people did talk to me, from being invited to parties and knowing what to do at a party if I were to be invited. It's like normal life was behind some kind of paywall and I had no way to pay. Every year I thought, maybe this year will be different. Maybe this year will be my year. But it was the same old story each time, and I never knew what to do to change that. So that is during Summer's first narration, and that kind of explains like what I always felt like before I had a name for what was not wrong with me, but like before I had a name for why I was different. It was just like, you know, everybody's part of this world and I'm not, and I don't know why, and I don't know how I can be part of it. And it's just like, you know, it's that feeling that's like something's wrong, but I don't know what. And so that's the best way I could put into words what it felt like. And just seeing, especially after I got a Facebook, I got a Facebook at the beginning of my sophomore year of high school, and just seeing all like the candid pictures, the people posting on each other's walls, the people just like hanging out and taking webcam photos and all these things. And it was like, wow, like I am not part of this world. Like I have friends, but we are not like that. And you know, everybody looks like they're having so much fun, and I don't know how to access that. So it was just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try to like add, like I already know this is gonna be long, so like I'm trying to like be concise with what I say, but when have I ever been concise? All right, next thing I have bookmarked, I think. Next thing I have bookmarked. This is so funny because I did, when I had, when I gave this to my friends to beta read, I did say that like there were parts that were very much like mirroring my experience, just because you know, like those were things that like I should have picked up on, like things that like after I found out I had autism, these things like all started to click and make sense to me. And this was one of the things. And when my friend was like, you gave her your exact after school routine, and I was like, I sure did. So this is page 23. All right, I turned the front door key and set today's mail on the table in the entryway. After setting my backpack down in the living room, I started my frozen French bread pizza in the toaster oven and went back to the couch to watch reruns of that '70s show until it was ready. Since it was only the first day of classes, I didn't have any homework today. And I kid you not, like, I just like clockwork every day when I would get home from school, I would go make my hyperfixation meal, whether it was, I mean, if I didn't have leftovers from dinner the night before, I would make some hyperfixation TP dinner or soup or something, and it was almost always French bread pizza. I went through different phases of hyperfixation meals, but French bread pizza has been tried and true. And I would go watch reruns of that '70s show, and I used to have it memorized, like what channels they were on, because there were like 3 different channels I could possibly catch it on depending on what time I got home. Because like school got out at different times on certain days, so I used to have it all down. I think it was on DirecTV. That makes me sound very rich. I promise you I was not. It was, I want to say channel 36. And then Teen Nick was, I want to say 303. And it was sometimes on there. And then FX, I do not remember what FX was, but that was the other channel that I could sometimes catch it on after school. Anyway. All right, also on page 23, she's talking about when she sent Nolan a Facebook friend request. So she says, since I was feeling so good about our conversation, I decided to do something kind of bold. I'd sent Nolan a friend request when I first set up my social media profile, but he'd never accepted it. I figured maybe he got a lot of them and couldn't keep up with them all, or any excuse I could think of besides, he doesn't even like you enough to scroll past your posts or let you see his posts, even though adding each other online isn't a big deal to anyone else. And I am telling you, like when I first got social media, I was overthinking everything. Well, actually no, first I didn't overthink anything. I was just like, cool, I'm here on Facebook, let me just do stuff. And then people would like delete my comments off their statuses. People would say I was lurking if they commented about, I remember this one post, like somebody commented about that '70s show, or somebody posted about watching that '70s show, and I was like, oh, I love that episode. And they told me I was lurking on their page and like deleted my comments, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know what I did wrong. And like, that's why I said, I think in my last video, I was like, props to anyone trying to learn social media for the first time with autism nowadays, because with like how much less social media there was in 2010, like me trying to navigate that with less social skills, like it was so hard. And I was like, I shouldn't overthink it, but I had to overthink it. And I'm like, adding people isn't a big deal. People just add everybody. But then this guy from my school won't add me. And like, his mom said it was inappropriate that I sent him a friend request because we weren't friends, but I'm like, people who I've talked to like twice in the hallway have tried to add me, so like I don't get it, I don't know the rules. But that was that. So I wanted to kind of like get into like the overthinking of social media when I did that part. The next thing I flagged was kind of going along with Summer's routine and like how every day after school is the same thing. When she invites Nolan to get smoothies, and that's like a big deal to her, but he doesn't know that, but it's a very big deal to her that like she is trying to make last minute plans, and instead of doing her routine that she does every single day. Like if I made last minute plans with somebody, they were very important to me. Like, unless my parents made me make last minute plans with them. Just kidding. But like 99% of the time, like I mean, that was not often that they would, actually, I don't remember. A lot of these things I've trauma blocked out, but I'm like, if I, by my own free will, make plans with you at the last minute, like that is the like greatest form of affection that I can show you, because I do not like to have my routine interrupted without warning. Or at least I was way worse about it in high school. All right, so this part's Nolan narrating. It's on page 50. All right. Would you maybe want to go to homecoming with me? The way she cringed after she said it. It was like she immediately felt she'd made a mistake she couldn't take back. I almost felt bad for her. So that, like, so much of social interactions, it was very much like throw this at the wall, see if it sticks. Like if I was attempting a new social interaction, something like asking a popular guy to homecoming, something that I'd never done before, which we're not going to talk about that, but we're not going to talk about my high school experience, but basically just like any kind of like bold, risky, new social interaction. Any kind of bold or risky social interaction, especially if it was something I hadn't like tried something similar before, it was very much feeling like I'm gonna throw this at the wall and see if it sticks, and then immediately be like, it's not sticking, or like just like watch, like, you know, like when you actually throw pasta at the wall and you like see it start to fall and you're just like, oh no, it's not sticking. It's kind of like that. Like so in this situation when she says it and then she's immediately like, he's gonna say no, it's kind of like that, but then he ends up saying yes, obviously. It's like, yeah, and it was just, it's very much like I know that I have made a face like after doing something like that, like after asking someone out or just being like, oh, I sure hope that worked. I've like made, I don't know if I could recreate the face now, but I remember years ago I made it for my therapist. I'm like, yeah, this is the face I make after I say anything. But yeah. And on page 52, Summer says, truthfully, I was still in shock that he even agreed to go with me. He didn't sound very enthusiastic, but he did say yes, even when I asked again to make sure. This all felt so fragile, like one wrong move would make him change his mind. So I decided it was best to just work with the information he'd given me and not press any further. So that, so what I wanted to, yeah, so with that, it's kind of like, right, because she's made this bold, risky decision, and it's the first time she's done something like this, and it seems like it's working, but like this is new, and it just felt so unlikely that it would happen, and so she's just like, I don't want to do the wrong thing, and like, especially like, she doesn't know she has autism at this point, like, I mean, she never knows for sure, but like, she doesn't even have a suspicion that she has autism at this point. When I know that I have it, and I'm like, something's like actually going well, I'm just like, sure hope I don't screw this up. like when I tell you, like, I am probably going to tell stories about my ex in this video, when like talking about dating and having autism. I don't know how to get around that, because that is my experience. I'm not gonna name her, and even if somebody were to find out her name, like even if I accidentally say it in another video or you figure it out some other way, it's not like she's the only person in the state of Delaware with that name. It's not like it's a very uncommon one. But like, I'm not gonna show a picture of her. Every picture I've ever posted of her is like either deleted or archived. But I'm going to tell stories about my experience, because there are things about dating with autism that I want to talk about. So I'm going to. So to make a long story short, I am going to tell stories about my ex. but I'm not going to give like identifying details about her. I think that's valid for me. But anyway, so when we started going out, I was just like, nothing has ever been this smooth in my entire life. Like because I had this party trick of, I had this kind of like, I don't want to call it a party trick, but like basically whenever I saw a very attractive woman in public, I would just say, hey, I think you're really pretty. And then, you know, usually that was where the conversation ended. And it was kind of like, you know, throwing something at the wall to see if it stuck. And with her, it happened to stick. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that could happen. And so like the entire time, like the entire beginning of us going out, I'm just like, I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I was just so afraid that I was going to screw it up. And like, that's why it took me, I don't know if I'd say 2 months was a long time, but it took me longer than I feel like, because we know the stereotype about lesbians moving very quickly. It took me longer than I feel like I would have if I were more confident. But yeah, 2 months of seeing each other exclusively, talking every single day, seeing each other every weekend for me to be like, hey, should we put a label on this? Because I was just like, I do not want to make the wrong move. And then like, I'm not going to tell the story how I broke up. That's not something I'm going to talk about in this video, but like leading up to that, I was just like afraid to do or say the wrong thing, because I'm just like, if I say the wrong thing, she's gonna break up with me, I'm gonna ruin this. And then my friends were literally talking me down, being like, you are not going to ruin it. Everything is going to be fine. Like, this is a normal interaction for people to have. This is a normal thing for you to say to her. And then yeah, anyway, moving on. So, and then also going along with Summer, like being very afraid of the fragility of things working out with Nolan. On page 53, she tells her mom about this, and her mom says, Summer, I thought I told you that you can't do stuff like that. If a guy wants to date you, he'll ask you. Asking him just makes him feel pressured to say yes. And something that I did growing up was because like my friends, my like closest friends at school like didn't have a lot of dating experience or any, like we were all very awkward. I just like never knew who to ask for advice, and so I usually would ask my mom for advice. And you know, my mom and I grew up in very different eras, so like, you know, the kinds of things like, you know, like it's the 21st century, like I don't have to wait for a guy to ask me out. Like, I don't know, like I was just like, so like some of the advice she gave me, I feel like looking back, I'm like, perhaps that was a little bit outdated. And I very much remember like one of the times I asked her for advice and like things didn't go well, and then I told my friends the next day, I'm like, this is what I did, I don't understand. And they're like, that's because what you did was weird. And I was like, my mom said. And they're like, your mom was a teenager in the 1970s. So so yeah, but I just wanted to like kind of show like Summer relies on her mom for that advice, because her only friend is Marta. Well, her only friends are Marta and Daisy, and Daisy doesn't really share a lot about her relationship, and Marta's only had the one relationship and thinks that she knows everything. So so Summer kind of relies on her mother for that advice. What was different with me, I'll say, is that after my parents found out I had autism, there was like kind of a bit of time where I don't remember exactly how long it was. I know it was during high school, where basically my mom was like, you can't say anything to your crush unless I approve it first, because she didn't want me to screw it up, and I didn't want to screw it up. And I just remember looking back like a year into that, and I was just like, if I had just texted him normal and not let my mom tell me when I could text him, what I could say to him, all that stuff, like we probably would have been talking, like we would have had like a much closer friendship, and then we maybe would have, like something would have happened between us, which maybe then I would have figured out I was gay sooner. But anyway, moving on. All right, so page 61, this is when they're taking pictures for homecoming. All right, I also had to remember that I was wearing makeup and couldn't touch my face. How did other girls do this every single day? How did Vivian and Darcy manage with even more makeup than this? I watched them touch up their lipstick, wishing I'd thought to bring mine. I was also certain my hair wasn't staying curled, even though my mom had used hairspray on it. It felt stiff when I touched it. And I was also careful not to touch it too much and ruin whatever curl it still had. I hated the crispy feeling from the hairspray anyway. Touching it or even remembering what my hair felt like right now made me cringe. So this is very much sensory issues, and because Summer hasn't really worn makeup up to this point, like this is a new sensory sensation. And honestly, like I've been wearing makeup since I was 14, and that's like not even a full face. I've been doing like full face since I was 18 or 19, probably 19. And I'm about to turn 30 in January. So like sometimes this is still too much for me sensory wise. I'm just like, I don't enjoy the feeling of having stuff on me, and like the hairspray, and just don't even get me started on the, like I thought all hairspray made my hair feel crunchy, and then one time at theater camp I was having a girl do my hair for the show and she used a hairspray and I was like, wait, my hair's not crunchy. She's like, no. And I'm like, it doesn't, this one doesn't do that. And I'm like, tell me all your secrets. I still like have sensory issues with like heat styling and all these things that I won't, you know, Summer parallels a lot of those, but that was what I wanted to kind of get across with that, was her sensory issues and like makeup being like a new sensory thing for her, especially. This is page 69 where Summer's come home from homecoming and she's just kind of reflecting on the differences between her teenagehood and her mom's. So she says, and even my mom, who'd had plenty of eligible bachelors to choose from, ended up divorced from her college sweetheart and hadn't been on a date since. Even if I could be the kind of girl she was, spending all my time with guys trying to get in my pants, I still just came home right after school every day and watched reruns of the same show. Maybe sometimes I hung out with one of my 2 friends, and sometimes I actually did something with them, like see a movie, but never anything interesting like going to a concert or a party or even a school dance. I play video games in Daisy's living room or act out March's favorite episodes of Glee, nothing more. And I think that's like not necessarily something I dealt with a lot, with like comparing myself to my mom, and like feeling like I disappointed her because I wasn't cool. But that's like basically because she knows there's a reason that she's not having the same kind of experiences as her mom and why she doesn't do the same things that everybody else does, but she doesn't have a name for it. So it's just frustrating. She's like, she feels like she's disappointing her mother because she's not doing all these things, but she doesn't know how to do them. And that's kind of what I wanted to get across there. All right, next up is on page 80. This is when she is talking to Jess Romano. And all right, in geometry, the girl who sat in front of me, Jess Romano, spun around in her seat. Summer, are you wearing makeup? Yeah, I said. We didn't usually talk, but knowing another junior was retaking this class besides Jonah was comforting, so I enjoyed seeing her and the 2 other non-psychotic juniors around in class. You look so pretty, she told me. You should wear your makeup like that every day. I blushed. Oh, thank you. I'm not very good at makeup though. My mom had to help me. It looks good, she said again, touching my arm. Hey, I saw you went to homecoming with Nolan. How'd that go? Oh, it was fun, I said. We're hanging out again today after school, actually. She grinned. Oh, so that's why you're wearing makeup. I was surprised that someone like Jess would talk to me like that. She wasn't popular, so to speak, but she was up there. She seemed to get along with all the more popular kids in our English class, and I usually saw her hanging around people I knew were in student council. So that's like an experience that I had in middle school and high school. Is like whenever somebody who like I knew was like of like a higher social status than me, I don't know how to explain like how in my brain I knew that. Like maybe it was just the autism to me sorting them into categories and trying to figure out like, but I knew who had more social ranking than I did basically. And if somebody who had more social ranking than me were to talk to me, I was like immediately suspicious that they were up to no good. Because in my past experiences, not all of them, but many of my past experiences with people who were in a higher social standing than me, trying to talk to me was not for anything good. So I tended to like kind of be doubtful of everyone at first, just because I was like, I'm not gonna get fooled again. But yeah, like anytime somebody outside of my circle would like talk to me in class, I'd be like, why is this person speaking to me? And because my brain was just like trying to like figure out the social cues. It's like, we are not friends, but she's talking to me like we're friends. Are we friends? Like just trying to put it all together. And like So like I created the character of Jess to kind of represent any well-meaning, not up to no good person who had talked to me during class. And I had just been like, what is happening? All right, and then page 93, Summer's talking about after Nolan's birthday party in the 3rd grade, and just kind of like their friendship or lack thereof and how it developed or didn't after that. Months passed, and I made no efforts to talk to him, nor he to me, but I'd smile at him across the playground. We gave each other Valentines, though that was back when you gave the same thing to the entire class, so it wasn't a big deal. But I still kept his Valentine in my nightstand drawer for years, fawning over "To Summer from Nolan" next to some generic Power Rangers caption. I kept the equally generic ones he gave me in 4th and 5th grade too, but sometime in middle school I rearranged the drawer and put the cards in the storage room with the rest of my elementary school stuff. A couple weeks after that Valentine's Day in 3rd grade, everyone was staying late to finish working on our mammal reports, and my mom came to pick me up. Feeling bold, but not too bold, I pointed out Nolan and told her she could tell him that I liked him. She must have thought I was joking, but I insisted, saying I was too scared to do it myself. So as we were all leaving, she said, "Nolan, Summer wants me to tell you that she likes you." She said it in a way that I could have played it off as a joke if I wanted, but I just blushed and avoided his glance. The next day he was so nice to me. He got some animal crackers for me so I wouldn't have to get up and get my own when the teacher was handing them out. He sat next to me at lunch, though we didn't talk. He clapped first when I finished presenting my mammal project. And when he was in front of me at the water fountain, he waited until we were both done to go back to his desk. However, the next day, he didn't really interact with me. I sat next to him at lunch. I initiated this time. And then when we were walking to the playground after lunch, he said, "Summer, can you leave me alone, please?" I wasn't sure what was wrong, but I obliged. Over time, I found new boys to chase after on the playground or stare at from behind my locker in middle school, but my feelings for Nolan always resurfaced. It was weird to think he might actually be interested in me now. Could it even be real? So, 2 things. First of all, this experience I used for inspiration, this experience I had with a boy in my 3rd grade class named Damon. And like, literally I told my mom to tell him that I liked him, and the next day he was super nice to me, and then the day after that it was like a switch was flipped, and I never found out what happened until I was 18, and we ended up living in the same apartment complex, and we reconnected on Facebook, and I posted a picture wearing red lipstick, and all of a sudden he was DMing me, and then he wanted to hook up, and I was just like, no, we don't do that. I was like, no, I don't, that's not, and that was a lot of lore, but anyway. Anyway, I like kind of inspired that scene from my little crush on him in 3rd grade, to give Summer and Nolan that little backstory. But like, I obviously developed theirs way more than not speaking to each other for 10 years and then randomly trying to hook up. But we did not, for the record, we did not. I moved to Washington and ghosted him. So anyway, basically, all of this to say, this is like young child Summer trying to navigate these social cues. She's like, we had this good interaction at his birthday party, and then he didn't talk to me, so I guess we're not friends. But I want to be friends, so I'm gonna make this bold move, and now he's being nice to me, so maybe something is happening, except now it's not, and I don't know what I did wrong. And so that's kind of what I wanted to express with that. All right, and then there's page 112 where they're on the way to the Bruno Mars concert, and I think this is Summer narrating. Hold on. Yeah, this is Summer narrating. "You're popular, and I'm me." "Popular?" he asked. "Like, you can walk into a room and most people know who you are, and people beside your close friends talk to you all the time." "Yeah, but I don't have like a ton of friends. I usually just hang out with Liam and Jake." "But you could have a ton of friends. People like you." "That's not all it's cracked up to be," he said. And as if he were trying to make a joke, he added, "Sometimes I'd honestly want to trade places with you, like if it meant Grant Hayward didn't think we were close enough friends to drone on about Minecraft when the teacher pairs us together." Well, he does that to me too. Grant was one of the better known special education students. Honestly, I'd say Grant is popular. Everyone knows him and Jimmy. Didn't he get nominated for Homecoming Prince? "Out of pity," Nolan said, looking a little surprised. "Grant and Jimmy being popular isn't exactly, for a good reason. They probably don't like all the attention they get anyway. Some of the girls will talk to them like, 'Wow, you're eating a sandwich with your own hands? You walked to school all by yourself from across the damn street? How brave and inspirational of you.' Like, yeah, they're special ed, but they can still, like, talk to us and do normal things. They're just awkward socially. I looked away. Yeah. And I promise you, unfortunately, not everyone loves them like you think. No, I know. I'd overheard what people called them. Well, either way, you're popular in a good way. People know you. You're cool without having to try. Okay, so that was a long section. But that's kind of like, so I kind of like, when I was younger, I could figure out who was like, I called them popular, but it was like, who was like, I don't know if I would say popular now, but like who was the better known people at school, like the friend group that always looked like they were having so much fun, like the people who were always in the candids and the yearbooks, like, and I would call them the popular girls or the popular kids, and my parents and my friends and my teachers would all be like, why do you call them that? Like, what makes them popular? And I never knew how to explain it. So like, my editor actually, this scene was much shorter originally. My editor was like, why does Summer think he's popular? Like, explain it. And this was the first time in my life that I've actually been able to put into words like things that I've observed about people that made me identify them as popular back in the day. And then there's also the bit about like, you know, overthinking it and like just putting so much thought into like, what's my social standing compared to everybody else's and all that. And then this is, I believe, no, this is not the first time Grant and Jimmy are mentioned. It is kind of a moment where, you know, it's kind of a moment where they're kind of being othered from everyone, because it's like, yeah, like everybody knows them, but that's not for a good reason. It's because everybody's calling them the R slur behind their backs. Or not everybody, but like a good deal of people. And, you know, it's, you know, when Nolan says like they can talk, they're just awkward socially, and that's kind of when Summer's like starting to think like, yeah, wait a second. But like she doesn't get to think about it too long, obviously, before like the next things happen. All right, so this is page 121, and it is the scene right after Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna read the triggering parts. If you know what scene I'm talking about, I'm not gonna read those parts. I am not going to say the R slur. I'm going to censor it, but it's in the book in context. And it's when Summer's talking, well, it's to, the lead into this part is Summer says like she doesn't know what to do when people are being bullied. All right. It wasn't like I would have known what to do. I'd freeze up in awkward situations and feel like I couldn't do anything. My aunt took my mom and I to Disneyland last summer, and my cousin tripped and fell, and I just froze because I wasn't sure what to do, even though the answer was obvious, help him up. My mom yelled at me right there in the park. You can't just stand there, Summer. Help him, for the love of God. Are you just R slur? My mom used that word a lot. Sometimes I started to think, was there something wrong with me mentally? I knew I wasn't normal, but I guess that couldn't be it. I'd seen the special education students at school, and we were very different. Even the high-functioning ones, as the teacher said, like Grant Hayward and Jimmy Vogel. Whatever was wrong with me had to be different than that. I knew my mother wasn't calling me the R slur because she thought I was mentally challenged. She'd just grown up in a time when it was synonymous with stupid. So this is another point where Summer's thinking like, you know, maybe there is something to my mom calling me this, but there can't be. So she's like starting to wonder, but no, but like, you know, like it gets cut off. And she's also like kind of identifying like, I freeze up when I get, she doesn't know the term sensory overloaded yet, but like when I get sensory overloaded, I freeze up. I don't know what to do. And that is a very frequent autistic trait. It's something that happens to me. So yeah, never abandoned my cousin on the ground at Disneyland, but yeah, I did abandon my friend outside of a Voodoo Donuts in Portland. Hi, August. So this is page 132. It's Summer and Nolan at, is it Liam's party or Jake's party? Somebody's party. All right, and it's Nolan narrating. Maybe I could take you to get a real pizza after school on Monday. That's okay, she said. I like my routine. A pause. Oh wait, you're asking me out. It's not that I don't want to. I just like my routine. Is that weird? Nothing you say at this point is weird, I said. Drunk people said all kinds of weird stuff. I'd ask her to hang out when she was coherent enough to think about it. I've just had this routine since high school started, and I don't like to change it, she said. Whatever you say. We can make out now, she said. I finished my sandwich. I laughed. Let's wait a while, okay? You still seem... What? She panicked. I'm doing something wrong. No, you're fine, I said. I'm just I'd rather talk to you right now. We can talk, she said. I'm good at talking. I like talking. What should we talk about? Whatever you want to talk about. I'm good with anything, she said. You can make a decision, you know, I said. Once in a while, it's okay to want something specific rather than being fine with whatever. I'm not going to stop liking you just because you want a ham sandwich instead of turkey. I like turkey though, she said. Not a big fan of ham either. I just don't want to be more of a burden than I already am. So Summer's drunk here. So she's like saying things that like normally she'd be able to filter out. So she's just kind of like going into like the thought process of like, you know, I can't make decisions because I don't want to be a burden. Like I want to be the chillest person ever, because if I ask for too much, then I will ruin everything, because I'm a very hard person to for people to like, and if somebody finally likes me, I don't want to ruin that. And I feel like that's you know, I am somebody who struggles to make decisions, and I think it's because I very much wanted to be perceived as chill so people wouldn't think I was too much. And I don't know if that's just an autism thing or if that's a whole different thing, but that is something that I wanted to come across with Summer, is that she knows like she's a hard person for people to want to be around, or at least that's what it feels like. So when people actually do want to be around her, she doesn't want to ruin it by asking for too much. And then similarly on page 133, she goes into, in her narration, I thought Marta didn't like hanging out with me because I wasn't the person she wanted me to be, but she'd feel bad cutting me off because we'd known each other so long. She had a picture in her head of my potential if I were normal, but I wasn't. I was a burden to her, and I'd be a burden to Nolan someday too. So like that was a thing sometimes with certain friends of mine. It's like I could tell they didn't like me for myself, like in middle school and high school. Like they liked the version of me that they thought could exist if they like tried to form me into that person. But like if I was myself too much, then they'd be like, Liv, that's weird. Don't do that. And that was just like, I was like, okay, well, guess I know I did something wrong here. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. That's just kind of like that's, you know, so that's kind of how I wanted to express that with Summer and Marta, is like, because you can see the toxicity in their friendship, obviously, throughout the novel. And it's like, she knows Marta doesn't like her for her. And sometimes she feels like they are just friends out of social obligation at this point. But that's kind of like, you know, sometimes it felt that way with some of my friends in middle school and high school. It was like, they don't want to not be friends with me, but they don't want to be friends with me, like the real me. I don't know how to explain that better. Page 144. Nolan had something I didn't. I wasn't sure what it was, but it was so easy for him to start conversations with the other couples and make me feel included. It was like he knew all these secret passwords to normal social interactions that I didn't. And that kind of goes back to like her first monologue about like, I know there's something wrong with me, but I don't know what. And I was seeing it now that she's friends with somebody who is of a high social standing. Like even me just being friends with the non-autistic people and seeing them interact, I'm like, okay, like they know how to do things that I don't. But then when she's so close with Nolan and seeing him do these things that she doesn't know how to do, and she's just like, why does he know this and I don't? Like what am I missing? And so I wanted to express that. All right, New Year's Eve, page 159. He had to go back home, but I couldn't stop smiling all night. I lay on my bed staring up at the ceiling, thinking about our kiss and him telling me that he loved me. A year ago, I never would have thought that I was the kind of girl who could have something like this, but here I was. Maybe I had deserved something like this all along. Okay, so I feel like that is more about her depression than about her autism, but just like, I wanted to address it just because me in high school, after I knew I was autistic, there were some things that I was just kind of like, I'm not gonna have this because nobody's gonna want an R-slur, for lack of a better way of saying it. And then like when good things happen to me, I just be like, maybe good things can happen. And I have a whole side thing, like not even a side thing, I have a whole thing I could get into about that. But there is just so much Liv lore that I would have to unpack with that we're just not going to talk about it here. I will save that for a deep dive of a different book someday in the future. But yeah, there's just times where I just wanted some kind of proof from the universe that like, yeah, I'm not, yeah, I'm autistic and I'm not going to have the same experience as everybody else, but maybe I'm still worthy of having these good things, these specific kinds of good things happen to me. And then sometimes being let down when those things didn't happen and feeling like it was my fault for not being normal, if that makes sense. That's as much as I'm gonna get into here. All right, page 169, this is Nolan reading Summer's journal. I don't feel bad about the breakup, but I don't feel good either. It's like one of those nights where I wonder if anything good can happen to me. I'm listening to music and Then There Were None comes on, and it just makes me think of how maybe one of these days I'll get tired of it. I'll get tired of waiting for something truly good to happen. I'll get tired of my life being like this, like some trial version of real life, but I can't seem to find how to access the full version where good things happen. I'll get tired of being a burden to everyone, and I'll just make it all stop. Okay, so that's just gonna go right in with the last thing I talked about that I thought I was done talking about because I forgot I also bookmarked this. So I've said what I need to say about that. Yeah. And then 171, this is Summer leaving the barricade drill where Jonah tries to talk to her and one of the other guys in the class is like, leave her alone. All right. Hey, he said, how was your barricade? I shrugged. Fine. Jonah tried to talk to me. Gross, he replied. Do I need to take care of him for you? No, I said. I just shut him up. You know him, right? Yeah, we're buds, he said. Well, we talk sometimes. He said we're friends, but we haven't talked since like 8th grade, and we weren't friends in middle school, I said. He shrugged. I don't know, guys just tend to say that about girls they don't think negatively of. Like, if I don't dislike a chick, I'd say she's my friend, even if we aren't close. Oh, I paused. Is that what you meant when you used to tell me we were friends? Like, before we started talking this year? He stopped in his tracks, like he was deep in thought about something. Did I ever tell you we were friends? I thought so. Well, maybe I just assumed because we'd known each other so long and you were usually nice to me. I was? You said hi back and stuff most of the time. I guess it doesn't matter now though, right? He sighed. I guess not, yeah. What matters is that now you're way more than my friend, and he kissed me to prove it. So that's kind of like, you know that thing, it's like when they said you were friends so you thought you were friends. Like, I had so many experiences, I don't want to say so many, but I had a handful of experiences where like somebody would tell me we were friends, and if I tried to actually like make plans with them or talk to them or send them a Facebook friend request or message them after they accepted my friend request, they'd be like, why is this girl talking to me? Like, this is weird. Like, and it's just because I didn't know the difference between like, we're friends, I don't hate that person, versus we're friends, we can hang out and stuff. It's those teeny tiny social nuances that I'm just like, why can't people just say what they mean? Page 185, Summer talking about her and Marta's friendship breaking up. A part of me knew I needed to fight for our friendship and apologize for whatever it was I did. Usually I was the one who did something wrong. Even if I didn't realize what it was, I was always the one who needed to apologize. I'd gotten used to it. But if we didn't make up, another part of me would be sort of relieved. We did have a good friendship, but she had so many expectations for me. And the way that lately I couldn't even suggest something contrary to what she had said without her flipping out. It wouldn't be so bad to have a break from that. There were a few times in middle school when I could have stopped being friends with Marta. I always went back to her though, after our fights. I had a hard time cutting people off, even toxic people. Not to say she was toxic, but well, maybe she was. But she had been there for me. Physically, she'd been there, even if she never wanted to let me talk about my problems. I couldn't cut her off. I just couldn't. So that's kind of like when, like the fact that it's like so hard for Summer to make and keep friends, she's like, I have to stick with this friend that I have, even though she's toxic. Like, I cannot afford to not have this friend. That's kind of like what I was trying to get at there. All right, and this is page 195. All right, so this is like, they're looking at the signature pages and Nolan's like, you have like 5 total signatures in this whole thing. What do you mean? And like, when I first got yearbooks in elementary school, I didn't know that you were supposed to ask people to sign them. So like, if people asked me to sign mine, I'd be like, yeah, sure. But I didn't know it was like a thing you were supposed to ask people. And so I never had a lot of signatures until like finally a few years go by and I start to pick up on the social cues and I'm like, oh, I should ask more people to sign this. There's another interaction between Summer and Jess Romano. Summer, you have to be creative. Like, haven't you seen all the cute proposals girls have been doing all week? Guys do it for prom and homecoming. We do it for Sadie's. How did he ask you to homecoming? I blushed. I asked him actually, and I just asked if he wanted to go while we were talking normally. She sighed. Girl, you've gotta let me help you. Follow me at lunch, I've got connections. I sure hoped we weren't learning anything important in geometry today, since I couldn't jeopardize my C, but I also couldn't focus because I was so worried about what Jess meant by connections. So this is another like moment where she's like, somebody outside of my main friend group is talking to me, and I don't know what it means, and I don't know if it's good. But I wanted to make sure that like Jess's character, like, she does mean well. Like, she is not trying to use Summer. She is not trying to bully Summer. Like, she does mean well. Summer just doesn't know how to interpret that. Like, she genuinely, like, does not understand that people can have good intentions at this point. All right, and then this is still Nolan narrating. All right. It wasn't that I didn't like Grant and Jimmy. It was just that talking to them was unpleasant. I never knew what to say. I was never interested in what either of them wanted to talk about. Usually a video game I didn't play or a comic series I didn't read. And if I did have something to say, it was always wrong somehow and required a lengthy explanation as to why. Some people were good at communicating with special education students, but I wasn't. All right, so this is Nolan talking about why he doesn't want to talk to Grant and Jimmy, and kind of, this is like sometimes the things that I would, before I knew that I had autism, like, if it came to like talking to when it came to talking to the other autistic students, I would just be like, I would kind of feel like I don't know how to interact with them. Like, I know the person who introduced me to them said like, they're just like you, they're just a little awkward, like you can still talk to them like normal people, but I was just like, it feels like there's a whole nother like secret code to know how to talk to them, and I don't like it. So it was like very interesting, like especially after I found out that I did have autism as well. I'm just like, I didn't know the social rules to interact with other people who didn't know social rules, and I'm just like, it's just why is socializing so complicated, man? But I gave Nolan that thought process here because it made more sense for him to have it, I felt like. So yeah. And then page 209, he's talking to Summer after they leave Grant and Jimmy, and all right, they're nice guys, she said. I know they are, I assured her. I just don't know how to talk to people like that. People with autism, she asked as we sat down on the mostly folded up gym bleachers. Yeah, that. I think that's what they have. It is, she said. I still remember when I met them. It was 7th grade in art class. The teacher had the special education attendant come in and explain that there were going to be 3 students from this program joining our class, she said. They have autism, which just means they're a little different, but you can still talk to them and be their friends. So I completely forgot when I made my last video that I literally gave Summer the exact same backstory for like her first interaction with autistic people as me. Completely forgot that I did that. But like I said, a lot of her experiences mirror mine. So like obviously not all of them, but like that was one. I did not realize that I so directly mirrored how I found out that autism existed. And so yeah, that was just like a little, like when I was reading through that, I was just like, oh, that is verbatim what I said in the video I filmed. So but yeah, that's how I found out that they existed. Right. And then on the next page, she's talking about Jean Dyer. All right. I guess I should feel bad because I used to be mean like that, she said. To Jean Dyer. She started going to my day camp the summer before 3rd grade, and my friends and I were like scared of her because she doesn't talk. She just like stares at you and sometimes tries to grab your arms or your stuff. Up until like 8th grade, Marta and I would scream and run away if she ever tried to interact with us. I guess it didn't occur to us back then that she had feelings and could understand what we were doing. You didn't know how to communicate with her, I said. And you were just kids. You learn from stuff like that. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. She shook her head. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Can we go back to dancing? So that is kind of the first time that we hear about Jean. And she is the nonverbal one of the autistic characters in the book. And I did have an experience with a nonverbal autistic girl in elementary school, and then she later went to my middle school and high school, and I just didn't know how to talk to her. And she was especially somebody that I othered myself from because I was like, well, I can talk. I don't communicate with people by just like I don't want to like mimic her gestures or anything, but like I don't like, and I would use that to other myself, because I'm like, I don't do that. And it was just like, literally all of our experiences are different. So like, that was something that I did have to unlearn over the years, and we'll get more into that as we get further in here. Okay. All right. And still Nolan narrating. All right. I held her close to me. It was all I could bring myself to do. I'd inspired Summer to be nice when I'd hardly been nice to her. Well, I used to be nice to her. She was right. I was nice to everyone, I guess. If someone hadn't pissed me off, then I didn't see a reason to be rude to them. Most people didn't read too much into it. Summer, on the other hand, seemed to think that me not being an asshole to her meant that I wanted us to be friends, as in the kind of friends who actually hung out and talked regularly, and not just people who waved at each other in the halls. And even that wouldn't have been so bad. Summer was awkward, yes, and I hadn't wanted to be friends with her, but I could have just kept being nice to her if I hadn't known she had a crush on me. I was so worried she'd misinterpret my friendliness even further, because she already seemed to act like she had a shot with me, and I didn't want to lead her on. So I became colder to her, but she kept acting like we were friendly, and I was annoyed by it. She used to ask me if we were friends, and in the beginning I would say, yeah, sure, because to me, anyone who hadn't pissed me off was a friend. I don't know, expected her to know the difference between, yeah, I don't hate you, we're friends, and yeah, we're friends, let's hang out. But she kept asking, and it took everything in me to not outright be an asshole and say, no, we're actually not. I don't know why I couldn't just say that. It would have saved us a lot of trouble in the old timeline. It just felt too mean. I guess, in retrospect, I'd still been leading her on in a way. Her words echoed in my head. I know what it's like to want to fit in, and to feel like you can't, no matter how hard you try. Summer might not have had a social disorder like Grant and Jimmy, but she was an awkward girl who just wanted to fit in, and I spent years pushing her away. So that is kind of Nolan's explanation of like, obviously Summer read into everything and like did not know how to interpret the difference between, yeah, we're friends, I don't hate you, versus, yeah, we're friends, let's hang out all the time. And that is something that I didn't understand growing up, and that like, looking back years later, I'm like, oh, like that was definitely a thing, like, and just feeling so, just not bad, but just feeling so awkward that like I was just violating all these social boundaries because I just like did not understand that they didn't actually mean we're friends, and just like not knowing the nuances, not knowing how to tell. I kind of went into all that already, so I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into all of it again, but like that's kind of building on that. All right, next page, Summer's narrating. Yeah. I knew they deserved better. I just didn't know how to be better. I wish there was some sort of class on how to communicate with people like that, or just people in general for that matter. A class that taught things like how to act at a school dance, or how relationships worked, and when it was the right time to move forward with stuff like making out and sex. There were so many things I felt like I was supposed to know because everyone else seemed to know, but I just didn't. Sometimes I wondered if there was something wrong with me, but I'd spent enough time around Grant and Jimmy to know that I wasn't like them. It wasn't that. At least with Grant and Jimmy I could talk to them. At least with Grant and Jimmy I could kind of talk to them. Well, I could make them think we were having a conversation, even if I was just listening to them talk and saying, oh wow, that sounds cool, every so often. I still felt horrible about the way Marta and I used to act around Jean. Even now, Marta still said things like, oh fuck, there's Jean, let's get out of here, under her breath when we saw her across the hall. Alright, so that's kind of Summer realizing, so that kind of gets into Summer realizing the wrong and how she treated Jean all those years, and like, just because she stopped doing it, she still feels like she never really made up for it, especially because she was still hanging out with Marta for so long, who still did that. And just like not knowing how to make things right, especially because Jean is nonverbal and she doesn't know how to communicate with her. But she's like, yeah, I know that it was wrong, I just don't know how to fix it now, other than just not continuing to do it. Page 218, Nolan's reading Summer's journal. Nolan's really popular with this group, like at school. I guess the gist is that if the popular kids don't like me, I'm gonna have a bad time. So he talks crap about me, and I guess they join in because they'd rather fit in than stick up for me. I get it. I've been there with people like Jean. The other kids on the trip will have a much nicer time if they befriend Nolan's popular group than if they're nice to someone like me who apparently nobody likes except Marta. Well, even that's debatable because apparently she goes along with them when they say I'm annoying because they like her and she wants to be in with them too. I wish she'd stick up for me. I know they're her friends, but I've been her friend for years. Why can't she stick up for me? It's like the summer after 6th grade when we went to the same day camp. A few weeks in, we went out to dinner together after, and it was just us while her mom had to take her brother somewhere. Marta told me that the girls who were being nice to me had a bunch of inside jokes about me, like how I have trouble making eye contact. I guess I accidentally stared at their chests when talking to them or something, and so they'd be Summer and look at each other's chests and talk to each other, and they'd mimic stories I told them that they thought were stupid, because apparently nothing I told them was actually funny or interesting. They would ask me questions and use my answers as fuel for more jokes, not because they were actually interested in where I got my clothes or why I didn't shave my legs yet. At first I was just upset that people I thought were my friends were actually being mean to me, but a few weeks later it occurred to me that when Marta told me all those things, she didn't once mention that she stood up for me. In fact, it wasn't they do these things, it was we do these things. As in, she was doing them too. She would be Summer with them, and she'd even tell them more things about me. But by the time I realized that, day camp was over entirely. I never knew how to bring it up to her, so I let it go. But I still think about it sometimes. I get it, really. When you just want to fit in, and people with a higher social status are giving you positive attention, you'll do anything. Even sell out your best friend. So, here's the thing is that this, number one, shows more the toxicity of Summer and Marta's friendship and how, like, Summer probably should cut her off but doesn't know how because, like, yeah, she's treating her like shit, but that's her only friend. But also because she gets it, because she knows what it's like to not have a very high social standing, and when it feels like you're getting that positive attention, you would do anything to get more of it. Even though, even though she obviously found out that the people who were giving her attention had bad intentions, and then she was still able to empathize with Marta and be like, well, yeah, I get it. Like, I would want to be in a higher social status too, so, like, I get it. And she compares it to, like, how she would act around Jean because like, as long as she was making fun of Jean, nobody was making fun of her. That kind of thing. And so, like, I know what it's like to empathize with Marta's character here. It's why I gave Summer that, like, I did, like, let Summer kind of mirror that from me, like, knowing what it's like, because there were times, especially, like, I'll tell a story about theater camp. I'll tell a story about theater camp the summer that I was 15, and that is a time in my life that I will not tell very many actual stories about. But for this instance, it's just, I don't know, it feels like the most relevant story I could tell. So basically, I was very socially outcast that summer. Like, I was not a person that people liked. But when I would talk badly about my best friend at the time, Kristen, I would get positive attention from the lead cast members and the people that everybody liked. And so there were times where if I felt like she wasn't being a good enough friend to me, I would sell her out. And I think, I don't want to get into all of the tea from that summer, but, like, I feel like there were points that year where we were both trying to sell each other out. And, like, I, like, obviously feel like I didn't even feel good in the moment doing it. It was like, yeah, I got a high five from one of the leads, but I feel like shit because I just sold out my best friend to get it. And but I would keep doing it because I didn't know what else to do. I was like, this is what gets me positive attention, and I'm just like, I'm desperate here. Like, I have only been getting negative attention this entire summer, except when I do this. And, like, I was 15. No, like, I was a kid, but it's like, I still feel bad about that now looking back. I mean, obviously, like, I don't really dwell on it because, like, I was 15, but, like, I don't know, I still feel bad about it if I really think about it a lot. Like, if I really, like, let myself think about it, I do still feel bad about it. And, like, me and Kristen aren't friends anymore. Not because of that, just, I don't even know why we're not friends anymore, but, like, just, it was one of those things, like, we were both toxic to each other for a point, and I think it just kind of, like, fizzled out. But, like, if she's out there watching this, like, I would love to catch up sometime, because, like, I just feel like we could just debrief all of that, and I could apologize, and I don't know, but I hope she's doing well wherever she is. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. Okay, so this is Nolan's narrating. He is telling Summer about how he and his friends stole the picture of him and Summer at 5th grade graduation out of her locker in 6th grade. But why? She laughed, but I could tell she was still confused. If you wanted a copy, I could have made you one. That wasn't exactly why I took it. I took a deep breath. People kept asking me if you and I were dating since you had that picture in your locker. Oh, they asked me too, she said. I always said no. You were dating some girl you met over the summer, right? I think I would tell people that you were dating someone else too when they asked. I think I even started telling them I liked someone who went to another school, which was true. I had a crush on this guy in my youth group at the time, so they hopefully wouldn't bother you about it. I mean, it felt good that people assumed I was with someone like you, but I didn't want to cross any boundaries. Then why'd you hang a picture of us in your locker, I asked. We were friends, she said. Or, well, I wanted to believe we were. Everyone had pictures with their friends in the lockers, so I put some of Marta and Daisy, and you were popular, and I thought maybe if people saw a picture of us, they'd think I was cool enough to talk to, and I could be popular too. So you just wanted people to assume we were friends? Kind of. I mean, I also wanted to believe that, but why did you take the picture? Just because people thought we were dating? Well, back then I didn't want them to think that, I said. She stared at the table, uncomfortable. I'm fine with people thinking that now, I said. It was years ago. I hope people know we're dating now. She didn't respond for a while. You could have just asked me to take it down. I would have just kept it at home if you had asked me. You didn't have to steal it. I know. I was just a stupid kid back then. I guess I didn't know how. I didn't think it would be a big deal, she said. I mean, you said we could take the picture. You were smiling at it. And like, you never told me I couldn't show it to anyone. Yeah, but a straight girl having a picture with a straight guy in her locker usually implies... I guess I just didn't think you would put it there. Whatever, she sighed. That was years ago. I guess it doesn't matter now. Okay. Okay, I am debating whether or not I'm going to talk about this. What inspired that scene? Screw it, I am. Okay, so, summer before sophomore year of high school. How few details do I have to give to tell this story? I was at a theater camp cast party. It was the first year that somebody I knew from school was also at theater camp, and we were the only 2 people from our school there. And I thought we were becoming friends. There's more lore to this, but I'm giving as few details as possible to just, he's not somebody I like to talk about. I'm just gonna, anyway. So yeah, so he knew that I had liked him, but we had agreed that like, he didn't like me back, nothing was gonna happen. I found out literally that day that he had a girlfriend who was somebody else who was not me. So, but I was like, we can still be friends. Like, I'm glad that we're kind of becoming friends, because I knew he had kind of a higher social standing at school. So I was like, if I can be friends with somebody who is popular, then maybe I am on my way. Maybe everything is coming up live. And so I asked him if we could take a picture together at this cast party, and he said yes, and we took the picture. I don't still have it. I'm not gonna show it. I'm not even gonna like show it with his face censored, because I do not still have it. But we took the picture. Like, he was smiling in the picture. He was not being held hostage. I was not holding him at gunpoint to take the picture, okay? Like, it was just a normal picture. I'm already like getting anxiety talking about this. Okay, so, so then I made it my phone wallpaper, because like, I was the only one who ever saw my phone wallpaper besides like my best friends. Like, I wasn't like, people didn't ask to borrow my phone. I didn't go like passing my phone around. Like, I didn't even have text messaging. Like, I just had a camera and a phone that could make calls. Like, those were the only 2 things my phone did. And so I made it my wallpaper. It was like a little flip phone, and didn't think twice about it. But I'm just like, I have this picture to remind me that I am friends with this guy who is of a higher social status than me, and, you know, maybe good things can happen to me. And so I'm like, so that was my thought process, and also that nobody was going to see it. And so I, when we got back to school, I tried to talk to him more, because I was like, we're friends and I want to continue to pursue this friendship, and I'm fine that he doesn't like me back. I like someone else too. I did like somebody else who went to another school, So I was just like, we can move on from this and just be friends, because I want to be his friend, because not only is he a cool person, but this will boost my social status. Like, I was kind of like doing it for me, but also like I did think he was cool. But anyway, I wouldn't sit at his table. I would sit at, like, I would try to talk to him in the hallway more at school. And I remember in the mornings, we both would like get there kind of early, and like he had a friend group that would sit at a table together, and I would sit at a table by myself. I would always try to sit like as isolated as possible and just play solitaire on my iPod and not interact with anybody and listen to music. Just, I wanted to do my own thing. I did not want to socialize that early in the morning. But then people from his table started sitting at my table. Like, and I never initiated this. I would never sit at their table. They would always sit at my table. If they were already at a table, I would still find the most isolated table there. But if they got there after me and filled in my table, then I wasn't gonna leave. Like, I wouldn't know what to do. And I forget exactly how this happened, but one of the girls at the table saw my wallpaper. And he wasn't at the table with me at the time, but he was in the cafeteria. And she was like, is that his full government name? And I like pull my phone back. I'm like, nope. And just, I was like, okay, I feel really awkward now. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, I would try to avoid them. And then, I was just like, okay, well, you know, I have to be more careful. Nobody can see my wallpaper. And then it happened one other time, but instead of, is that his full government name? She said, are you dating his full government name? And I am like, I remember my first reaction was, ew, no, because I wanted to make it very, very clear that we were not dating, because I knew that would cross the boundary if I let people assume we were dating. I was like, no, we are not. Like, I like someone else. He has a girlfriend. We are not dating. And then I like left the cafeteria and was trying to like go somewhere else, but then they like followed me or something, I don't know. But I was just like, okay, like at that point I'm like, I'm changing my wallpaper. I cannot do this. Like, I changed it back to a picture of my dog. I'm like, I can't, like, this is just, I can't deal with this. And then like a couple days later, I want to say, one of his friends came up to my table and was like, do you still have that picture of him? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's not my wallpaper. He's like, well, yeah, but you still have it. I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. He's like, okay, well, can I show it to him? Because he doesn't believe you have it. And I'm like, that's really weird. Why wouldn't he believe I have it when, like, you can tell he knows he's in the picture. He, like, was not being held at gunpoint, any of that. Like, I was just so confused. Like, this is like the undiagnosed autism working overtime, like trying to figure out what's happening. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, go show him the picture. I don't know what's happening anymore. And so he comes back and he's like, were you at a party when you took this picture? And I'm like, yes. And I was very careful not to say cast party because I wasn't sure if his friends knew he did theater. So like, yeah, we were at a party at Golfland. And they're like, okay, and was he with another girl at the party? And I said, yes, her name was so-and-so, because I knew he had a girlfriend who was also at that party. And that's like the day that I found that they were dating, and it was super awkward because I was like, oh shit, I've been flirting with him and I didn't know he had a girlfriend. I'm so sorry. But I was just like, yeah, like I was trying to make it very, very clear. I liked someone else. I knew we were not dating. Like, I did not want to cross any boundaries. And then like, just the way that our like friendship, and I say friendship because it was definitely on his end, I don't hate you friends, not let's hang out friends, but my autistic ass didn't know that. And so the way that our friendship just imploded because of that picture, and the way like the gaslighting, he was like, I never told you could take that picture. You have to delete it. And I didn't delete it at first. I don't have it anymore. I want to make that very clear. But I didn't delete it at first because I was like, he's not gonna tell me what to do. What, like, he told me we could take the picture. I'm just like, it's not on my phone anymore. I'm moving it onto my computer so nobody ever finds it again. But like, damn, okay. But yeah, and it was just like years in the future, like looking back, I was like, I wish people would have just told me what the social cue was. Like, looking back, like, yes, it was very obvious. Do not make your phone wallpaper a picture of you and a guy you were not dating if people see both you and him as straight, which I thought I was at the time. And like that seems so obvious now. I don't know why I didn't realize that back then, other than the undiagnosed autism. But actually at that point it had been diagnosed. My parents just didn't tell me. But yeah, and it was just like, if I had just known what the boundary was, I wouldn't have done that. And it's like one of those things, it's like one of those boundaries you don't think you would have to explain to someone, But I don't know. So that's all of that to say. Summer's picture of Nolan in her locker was to parallel that experience. Was to sort of represent that experience and how, like, you could have just told me. You didn't have to, like, make it a whole big thing. Like, he didn't steal my phone or anything like that. Like, he didn't, like, break into my locker or whatever. But it's like, you didn't have to make it. It's like, I thought I was doing my best to maintain the boundaries, but, and it just, I don't know, like, I don't know where I went wrong, and, like, looking back years later, I can tell where I went wrong, but, like, back then I was just like, I don't understand. So that was kind of what that was about. That story is probably going to be, like, a longer chunk of this video than any actual line in the story that I've explained. And I know I probably gave way more details than I needed to for that backstory, for that lore, but I'm the kind of person who, like, I never know the right amount of details to give because I'm like, I need you to have all the needed context to understand what happened. And I feel like with any story involving that person, I feel like I can never give enough context to explain just how messed up that situation was. But anyway, we're not going to give more context. We're gonna move right along to the next thing. So, kind of in line with that, on 227, Summer says, I guess that was just how kids were. I couldn't expect everyone to explain all of these hidden social rules that they just naturally seem to understand. I didn't understand how everyone else just knew these things and I didn't. Where did they learn them? Was there something missing in my brain? Alright, so that's kind of it. Like, you know, like, people don't expect that they're gonna have to explain things to a 14-year-old, like, hey, don't make your phone wallpaper a picture of you and someone you aren't dating. Yeah, so, yeah, that's just kind of building on that. Anyway, okay, page 233. This is where Summer asks Nolan how many people he's slept with. Right. Maybe after prom, you can make it 6. She looked up at me, then at the ground again. Maybe. What? Are you sure? She nodded. You love me, right? Of course, Sam. I'd never do anything to hurt you. That's why I want to make sure you're sure. Well, I'm sure, she sighed. I think. Alright, so I'm not gonna read that whole scene, but, like, the gist of, like, basically Summer has said that she's interested in having sex with him, and Nolan is like, where's this coming from? Like, I had no idea. Like, she seemed, like, so squeamish about this, and now she's suddenly cool with it. And then the thought process on Summer's end is definitely, like, if I don't do the normal thing that teenagers do, then I'm going to ruin this. And then, like, I tried to make it clear that that's what was going through Summer's mind while Nolan was the one narrating, but that's the gist of it, is like, she's like, she thinks she has to do the normal thing or else she's gonna ruin the relationship or else she's gonna ruin the relationship by not being normal. All right, page 252, this is the flashback to, in the old timeline, the last time Nolan saw Summer, and he's the one narrating. Because I know there's something wrong with me, she said. In an ideal world, we'd be friends, and you'd want to be friends. Maybe more than that, but I'm not stupid. I know you like Katie, and that's fine. I just wanted to be friends, like you said we were. But what I don't want is your pity and your lies just because you think that's what I want. You've never listened to me, have you? Just tell me what you want from me, I said. I looked up and saw the long drive-through line ahead of us. Forget this. I'll just park. We'll order inside. I'll pay for my own. No, I promised. Fine. Alright, so that's going back to, like, Summer knows that something's not right. And in this moment, like, she is done with pretending that she doesn't know why people don't like her. And, like, she's like, I know why people don't like me, and it's because of whatever is wrong with me, but I don't know what's wrong with me, and I want someone to tell me. And she got a little bit more than she bargained for. Instead of an autism diagnosis, she got, you know, but that's kind of what was going on in that scene. All right, and then I'm not going to read this scene, but the part where, like, they're gonna have sex, and then she's like, wait, no, I can't. I have a lot of feelings about the way I wrote this scene, because there were experiences I was trying to parallel with it that I later realized were not because I was autistic, they were because I was gay. And I don't want to get into that part of my life here. That's just not something I want to talk about. Like, when I wrote this scene, there were experiences I was trying to parallel that I thought were because of my autism that I later learned were because of my gay. But sex repulsion is still a thing in the autistic community. And I'm like trying to think how I can talk about this without saying way too much personal information. I'm going to talk about Summer and Nolan here. So I'm strictly going to talk about Summer and Nolan in this scene. So Summer wants to do this. She feels that attraction for him, but as it's happening, she's just like, this is new and I am not ready for it and I don't know what to do. And it's like kind of like a sensory overload because it's like this whole new thing that she has no idea how to do, and Nolan has done it several times, so he knows what he's doing, and she's like worried that she's not gonna be good and all this stuff, and it's just too much for her to handle, and she's like, I can't, like we can't. And so that is what happened there. But she is very much attracted to him. She just has those she just has kind of like, I don't want to say something to work through, but she is just uncomfortable with the idea of sex because it's new to her and she's not ready to explore that yet. Moving on. I do not want to know how long I've been filming, but I'm so close to the end. I'm on the last color of Post-its. Okay, I'm back. I had to let my battery charge for a little bit. Hopefully it's enough to get through the rest of this because I want to go to bed. Okay. So the next part I have bookmarked is on page 266, and it's Summer talking to her English teacher as she leaves for the summer. And I bookmarked this just because I wanted to say, like, sophomore year was the year that I got diagnosed, and my favorite class I had that year was English 2 honors with Miss Carter. Well, she has a different last name now, but I just always call her Miss Carter because that was whose class I was in. And just like in the atmosphere of just being so scared navigating this new thing, and like very much picking up on which teachers saw it as like me being the R slur and which teachers didn't. The teacher I felt the absolute safest with was always Miss Carter, and like she was my comfort teacher, and so I wanted to give her kind of a tribute character, and I wish that I would have gone more in depth into the relationship between Summer and her English teacher, but there was so much else going on that like I couldn't develop that as much as I wanted to. But I did want to give her a tribute character because of all the teachers who made me feel safe while I was just in that worst year of my life. She was definitely one that I still remember and I'm still in contact with, thankfully. But yeah, if you're watching this, Miss Carter, that was for you. Anyway, next thing I have bookmarked. All right, so the next thing I have bookmarked is Summer talking to the psychiatrist, Dr. Levin. I sighed. I guess it all goes back to the fact that I don't feel normal. I never have. It's like, for as long as I can remember, I felt like there's some kind of paywall between me and normal life. And if I can't get past it, then I'm never going to be worth anything. Why would anyone want me to be around if I'm just going to be a bad friend? I never know the right way to act. I freeze up in stressful situations and stand in the middle of an aisle in Target staring into space, or leave my cousin sitting on the ground at Disneyland because I'm too frozen to help him up. And then my mom will ask me if I'm I can't say that word. She's a psychiatrist. She knows what it means. Well, you know, and I'm always going to be a bad friend because I don't know how to act in social situations a lot of the time. It's like there's a secret code that everyone else in the world just naturally knows, but I need them to explain it to me. And then they get mad about it. And that's just summarizing what it felt like to have undiagnosed autism, in high school especially. On the next page, when like, now that Dr. Levin's brought this up, that this might be something she has, she says, I really don't think that's what I have. She wrote something else down. Autism is a spectrum, Summer. No two people with autism are exactly alike. Some may be nonverbal, and some may be more talkative than non-autistic people. Some may have a special interest they love to talk about for hours. Some struggle with eye contact. It's worth noting that you haven't once made eye contact with me. I'm sorry. I tried to meet her eyes, but it felt awkward, so I looked at the space behind her. I just feel so weird about making eye contact with people I've just met. And that's common on autistic people, she replied. Though there could be other explanations, it's a very common trait. It's not a bad thing no matter the cause. You can find ways to work around it, like looking at something directly up behind someone to give the illusion that you're making eye contact. I really don't think that's what I have. Grant and Jimmy had a kind of voice, I guess, the way they talked. Jean always walked hunched over and carried herself in a very specific, closed-off way. Grant leaned back more than most people when he walked, and always kept his arms up like he was marching, and there wasn't anything I talked about the way those boys talked about Minecraft. So there's more that Dr. Levin says, getting into the diagnosis and all that, but I wanted to highlight that paragraph because this is another instance of Summer othering herself, and that is something that I very much fell into. Is I was so hyper aware of like everything I was doing with my hands, the way I was standing. When I watch back my theater camp DVDs, there's the one from the summer that I was 15, which I'm not going to get into all of the lore, like I said, but the way I'm standing on the stage in those videos is because like I was trying to be hyper aware of the way I stood and make sure I didn't like look autistic. The way I was standing, let me see if I could put a picture in, like who stands like that? Anyway, so I was just like, but I was always so hyper aware of like, I would realize when my voice was sounding a certain way, or like when I was making a certain gesture, or when like, I didn't want to be perceived as autistic, and I was so hyper aware of everything I did. And I remember years later, like, cause I stopped doing that at some point and like stopped othering myself and unlearning and unpacking and everything. And then when Sia's movie came out, people were talking about how Maddie Ziegler was performing a caricature of autism with her mannerisms in the movie, and something that just clicked for me when I saw that post, and I was like, that's what I was afraid to be seen as. Like everything she's doing were things that I would consciously try not to do or to make sure I wasn't doing because I was scared of being perceived that way, because that's like that caricature was how I knew people perceived autistic people, and I didn't want to be seen as that. And it was just like a moment for me, like reopening all of that from the years that I spent on learning and unpacking and all those things, and I'm just like, oh. Anyway, moving along, on page 283, or bottom of 282. I took the pamphlet, but as I did, I suddenly remembered all those years ago, sitting at my desk in 6th grade, and I heard Nolan's voice as clearly as if he were in the room with us. Are you kidding me? I don't want to take the same bus as the Arsler kids. And Marta, a guy like that will never be happy dating an Arsler. I knew I wasn't that. Whether or not these tests came back positive or whatever, however autism tests work, I knew that slur was irrelevant, but I couldn't stop thinking about what it might mean. And that's another thing, was that I like had it in my head that like this was how I was going to be perceived, and I knew what people thought of the other people that they perceived that way, and I was just like, if I want a chance at living any semblance of a normal life, I can't tell people. Like, I have to make sure nobody finds out, or else I won't get to date. I won't get to go to dances and parties and be normal or whatever. And that's kind of what Summer is doing in her head here, which again is not necessarily true, but that's what it felt like when I first got diagnosed. It felt like suddenly the barrier between me and normal life now included nobody can find out about why I'm not normal, for lack of a better way of saying it. And then I did have Dr. Levin close out their meeting with, I just want to make sure you understand, if you do have autism, it doesn't mean you're broken or abnormal or that there's something wrong with you. It's just something different, and everyone in the world has differences. An autistic person is not broken, and they do not need to be cured. There is no cure, and there doesn't need to be one. You can get help for things like social cognition and sensory overload, and you can learn how to accommodate those things and adapt your life to them. Don't look at this like there's something wrong with you, okay? Just something different. And I think that's something that I wish I would have heard when I was first diagnosed. Like, it's something that I learned over the years through experiences, but like nobody actually said that to me that I can remember. And I think if somebody had said that to me when I was younger, then it would have made a big difference in my life. But I also think, like, in 2010 when I was diagnosed, the culture surrounding autism was very different, and so maybe that wasn't really something that was said per se. I don't know, but I wanted to make sure I included that because that is something I wish I would have known when I was getting diagnosed. Moving along, I looked through the pamphlet. There were a lot of traits that I identified with, like finding comfort in routines and feeling stressed, sensory overload when those routines were interrupted. I hated spontaneous plans after school that I didn't have time to prepare for. They messed with my routine. It was incredibly rare when I felt comfortable initiating plans with someone that interrupted my routine. Even rarer did I feel comfortable accepting an invitation to do so from someone else. Sensory issues. Hating the feeling of hairspray in my hair or the air from the blow dryer on my face. Never being able to wear turtlenecks or sweaters with itchy fabric even briefly because I felt like I was suffocating. Or during idle time in class, I'd rub erasers against my nails, and I'd specifically buy pencils based on which erasers felt best. There was the way my memory worked. I could remember what day it was when Nolan and I had talked at his birthday party in 3rd grade, and what I was wearing and what song was stuck in my head at the time, but I could not for the life of me remember what I'd learned in math class. And aversion to or general disinterest in sex. While not all people with autism experience that, it was common enough to be mentioned in the pamphlet. So this summer going through the pamphlet, checking off all the things that she identifies with, was to parallel me going through that book my parents bought me and checking off all the things that I identified with and like realized like, oh yeah, that explains that and that and that. And for reference, like a lot of the things that I had them mention are actually like things that were things that I identified with too, like the, oh, I don't have one in this drawer. The pencils, the only pencils I used after I discovered them in 6th grade, I still buy these to this day. I think they've changed them because last time I went to buy them, I couldn't find what I was looking for, and I hate that because I have autism. But I'm gonna put a picture on the screen. Like, these are the pencils that I have been loyal to for my whole like life since 6th grade when I discovered them because they feel the best. And the eraser, when I like scratch it with my thumb when I'm like listening to the teacher talk or whatever, it's good senses, for lack of a better way of saying it. Like, I would buy those pencils because the eraser felt the best. But yeah. And so when Summer's mother walks out and she's like trying to explain like, you don't have autism because you can't, because all these things. And then she said, and you can kiss Nolan goodbye if you even mention that you might have a mental disorder to him and he'll be gone. I can't believe you even told him you were seeing a psychiatrist. And that, I believe, more to do with like the culture surrounding autism at the time than my mother herself being a certain way. That was something that she was worried about, is that if I told somebody, then if I told somebody I was interested in, then they wouldn't want to date me. And so that's something I internalized. Again, I'm saying that's more because of the culture surrounding autism in that time period, not because of my mother being a certain way. And then Nolan's narration on the next page. What? Summer couldn't have that, could she? She was nothing like, it's because I'm not good at social rules and stuff, she said. I've always felt like there's a secret code that everyone just knows and I don't. It's why I act so awkward all the time. It's why you had to teach me how to act at dances and stuff. Well, that did explain that, but you're not. It's a spectrum, she continued. Everybody's different. Some are like Grant and Jimmy, some are like Jean, and some are like, well, I'll never know if I have it or not because my mom won't let me get tested for it. So that's kind of like, I can't think of if any specific friends had that reaction to me telling them, but it's kind of like the bargaining of like, that I do, because it's like, I can't have that because I'm not like that. Not getting that it's a spectrum. Ow. And I think, I want to say somebody did have a reaction like that, but I do not remember who. But I did want to show that side of the reaction. Summer narrating. It was an interesting feeling to be this close to knowing what was wrong with me and how to get help, and then being hit with the reality that I'd never know and I'd never get help for it. And that's what I wanted to highlight with the importance of the diagnosis, because being able, like, on a completely separate note, the social skills classes that I took junior and senior year of high school, I do not think were helpful. I do not think I learned from them. My case manager said that she saw growth in me. I don't know where it came from. I genuinely don't know if it's just because I was being more social outside of school with joining youth group and all those things, or if those classes actually did something. I do not feel like they did anything, but that was more than 10 years ago, I'm sure that social skills classes run a bit differently in this day and age. I don't know. That's not the kind of classes I teach. I do teach spec ed, but I don't teach that part of it. I just teach spec ed English. So anyway, and I also teach regular English. Not every student I have is spec ed, so I'm just gonna clarify that. Anyway, just in case like anybody's watching this and they're like, wait, so-and-so's in Miss Linda's class, does that mean? No, not necessarily, no. Okay, anyway. Anyway, so I wanted to include that because it's just the importance of getting a diagnosis and being able to get the help that you need, whether that is social skills classes or just being able to communicate to people what is making you different and why you need that extra help with social skills and stuff like that. And part of what causes Summer to kind of go off the deep end for the last time is just having that knowledge that's like, I might know what's wrong with me, but I'm not allowed to find out, because if I find out that I do, it's gonna mean all this stuff, and just the harmfulness of the stigma, and whether that's getting a diagnosis or what happens after you get a diagnosis. That's just something I wanted to communicate. Okay, page 294, Summer's journal. And even so, if I find out that that's what it is, I'll have a word to describe the problem, but at what cost? Getting social skills classes and stuff probably costs money that I don't have, and despite how understanding Nolan is acting, there's no way he could be cool with it. At the end of the day, he'd still look at me like one of the special education kids at school. He'd be nice to me, but he wouldn't want to date me anymore, especially not if other people at school found out. Marta would have a field day. She'd make sure everyone called me the R slur behind my back and to my face. So that's kind of more going into like, there could be a name for this, but at what cost? And just kind of like her like spiraling a little bit, thinking like, if it is what I have, then this is what's going to happen, because it can't, like, because this is what I've seen happen to the other spec ed kids. And I think that was a big fear I had, is that even people who had already known me from me would just look at me like another one of the spec ed kids if they knew that about me, which again, there is nothing wrong with, but that wasn't something I had unlearned yet at the time. There was still that stigma very much in my mind. All right, so this is the final scene where it's after Nolan's assembly and people are coming up to him and talking to him. We just wanted to say that we're really sorry to hear about Summer, Grant said. She was always really nice to us, Jimmy added. The special education teacher put a hand on Jean's shoulder and said, Jean thought Summer was a very nice friend and she's sorry for your loss. Thank you, I said. And we wanted to give you some money for her foundation, Grant said. He reached into his pocket. The three of us came up with $7.54, but we're going to ask our parents for more tonight. Oh, you really don't have to, I said. Besides, I can't take donations. Only Leah can. We'll bring it to Leah then, the teacher assured me. So there's twofold to this particular moment. This is where Nolan is kind of starting, like there's like a shift here. I'll talk about the shift when I read the next little part that I have bookmarked, because it goes with this. But I do want to point out this little thing I did, and maybe you caught it. But one of the last people Nolan talked to before Grant, Jimmy, and Jean, he had to correct them, like, it's not my foundation, it's Summer's foundation. And Grant straight up calls it Summer's foundation. Doesn't need to be corrected. That's a little thing. Anyway, all right. Thank you, I told her. Grant, Jimmy, maybe this weekend you guys can come over and show me how Minecraft works. Their faces lit up. Yeah, I'll ask my mom, Jimmy said. Me too, Grant replied. We're here for you, buddy, and we'll give you so much stuff. Jean, you can come too, I offered. I didn't want to exclude her. Jean shook her head, frowning. Oh, Jean doesn't like Minecraft, Grant explained. She always reminds us not to talk about it around her. Yeah, we get a little carried away sometimes, Jimmy said. You'll have to let us know if we're talking about it too much, because sometimes it's hard for us to tell when people aren't interested in what we're saying. But as long as you remind us, we'll shut up, Grant assured me. See you this weekend? See you this weekend. So, this is a big moment, because it's the shift for Nolan where he realizes there's no other spec ed kids. It is a spectrum. They are just as much regular people as Summer was. And because you could see he starts, when they're like, we have some money for you, he starts to say, oh no, like, you don't have to, like, as if, you know, they should keep their money, because if he takes money from the spec ed kids, then it might say something about him or whatever. But then there's that shift where he's like, they have what Summer might have had. And that doesn't make them different in that way. Like, they can still want to donate to this foundation. I'm not taking advantage of them if I take their money. And then he invites them to hang out because he remembers, like, all Summer wanted was to feel normal and included. And, like, if he could be friends and more with her, despite her probably having autism, or not despite, but, like, you know what I mean, then maybe he could give Brand and Jimmy the same chance, and who's to say that they wouldn't also be good friends. And that is just, it's one of those things that, like, I wrote it and I was just very shocked at myself that I like wrote this scene, because I'm just like, that shift is just so, maybe it's not so subtle. I don't know how it's perceived by all of y'all, but for me it was that subtle shift, but it's such a big moment. Like, from him going like, they're different, they're different, they're different. They're like Summer, and Summer wasn't different. And that's like, that's the shift. So yeah, that was the last thing I had bookmarked. This has been a lovely experience going through this. I do not want to know how long this is going to be. I'm going to have to edit out so much. But I enjoyed doing this deep dive. If you have any questions, anything you want me to elaborate further on, if you've read the book and there's something that I didn't talk about that you thought maybe I would and you were curious to know about, please leave it in the comments below. If you watched this whole thing, thank you so much, whether or not you've read the book, but especially if you haven't even read it, like, thank you for dedicating your time to this activity. I appreciate it. I don't know when or what my next video will be, but I am having fun, so yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever it is. And as for y'all, I will see y'all in the next time I make a video. Have a great rest of your day. Almost said make good choices, because I'm a teacher and that's how I end all my classes. So yes, have a great rest of your day, and I will see y'all next time I make a video. Thanks for watching. Bye.